Hi, this is Mark Oblatt from Classic Technologies, and this is the 1959 Austin Healey that I'm restoring. And I'm at the stage now of rebuilding the harness. Here you have the dash out of the car and the rest of the harness that I laid out on a sheet of plywood. So, just starting out, the first process is to, lay everything out and label all of the different features. All of the different ends, and just work your way through identifying everything, and then you use the stock schematic I have right here and helping you to identify everything. And at first it looks very intimidating with nothing with nothing labeled and so forth, but if you go down and one by one and label all of the different components in the schematic, and I use one of those pens with all the different color inks in them, and then trace out the different wires. I bit by bit make the schematic much easier to read. So and then just taking that to the next step, you go to the starting at the back of the dash. I have the this is the water temperature gauge, and there's an illumination light for that. And then this is the wiper switch, which I labeled the wires. This is the heater switch, labeled those as well. And this is the high beam indicator. There's the ground for, that's the back of the tachometer. And this is the, turn signal indicator. This is the no charge indicator for the for the alternator or generator. This is the dash light switch, labeled all of that. This would be another one of the dash illumination lights. And then you have your overdrive switch, and this is inside here is the headlight switch. And I'll go through and label all the different features of that and identify the the feeds, the B plus common, and the wire that goes to the parking lights, and then the wire that is the feed for your high beam switch, your dip switch. And then you have your ignition switch, which has it's going to have a common feed going in, and then your ignition out for powering your coil and fuel pump and your ignition related items. So this is just a two-position ignition switch. There's going to be situations where you have your ignition, accessory, and start, this just has basically your ignition and push button start. So now I'm going to work at removing all the different wires from the back of the dash now that they're labeled. And then I'll be stretching it out. So now I'm removing the wires from the dash illumination switch, and I have to cut a screw. I'll cut the head off a screw. I'll just do that later on, just to save time. This is the overdrive switch, which can just unscrew the front of that. I already loosened that up. I'm not sure if that switch can be cleaned up. I'd like to stay with the original and just put that back on there. Put the nut back on. I could leave that with that. To take out this, the knob over here, which is for your headlight switch, you push that button in, and you pull that off, and we'll put that back on. Removing the wires from the fuel gauge. So now I'm going to take the dash, put that aside. So now the harness is removed from the dash, and unfortunately, the harness was so far gone when I was removing it from the car doing the disassembly. I cut all the ends, which wasn't the greatest idea. I wasn't nervous about redoing the harness or anything, but it would have been good for a couple of things to be able to buzz out the wires from from one end and checking for the continuity at the other end. But so this is going to be my starting point. I'm going to put a couple of screws to lock this area down and then spread everything out from here. So these are just put one right behind it. So that's kind of locked in place. Get that right there. Another one right there. So you can put these bends that are here are the way they were in the car. Just route that around like that and get that all set up. So you just continue going around, locking this down. All the different branches. Some of these branches I won't be using. This is the original fuse box, which is just the 2 glass fuses. And this car is completely original. I used the original nuts and bolts wherever I could and so forth, but it's kind of torn on the wiring of the car, whether I put in the Classic Technologies fuse box or stay stock. But the fuse box is a really nice platform, and it's just going to make wiring the car much easier, and it's just so convenient that I'm just using the Classic Technologies fuse box. So I won't need the the flasher that's right here. This doesn't have hazards because it's they didn't have hazards back in those days, but that will just with another switch I can add hazards to the car. And or to the headlights, and this would be to the other horn, the parking lights and headlight connections. So here is my original Austin Healey harness that has been laid out on a piece of plywood. The plywood was covered in actually a flooring underlayment paper that I had, and that helps you to trace out the harness. So now I'm just using a Sharpie to trace out the harness. I plan to remove the harness and lay the wire in it. So this will keep the path correct. So now I have the original harness all laid out. Everything is all traced out, and I made all my notes, identified all the accessories and the positions, and put nails at all of the different joints, and to give myself a routing pattern for the new harness. So now that I have everything all laid out on this piece of plywood and labeled everything and made all my notes of what everything is, I'm going to start pulling up the harness. So just unscrew that. You got two wires going into one terminal, so you have this particular wire is a ground, so it's going to be going out to the parking lights. So you have your ground that comes in here, and then it's going to come out to this terminal, and then you're going to crimp the two wires together to bring it into this other the rest of the harness. And you'll be doing that in a number of places where you have items like your parking lights. There's going to be a red wire for your parking lights that's going to go out, and then it's going to come out for your license plate illumination here. You'll have two wires that come out, and they'll get crimped into one contact and then go over through here out to the other parking light on your left or right side. So I put nails at all of the different bends to keep the wires routed, and hold the pattern. Oops, I didn't get all of this, so I will trace this out. So this was to the horn wires, and they had these sleeves that were crimped onto the ends of the wires that get pushed into the horn. And you know, there's this rubber gasket, and it has nubs that are longer on one side versus the other, and it has this metal piece. Now, I'm not going to remember the order of everything later on, but you know, just make notes on this piece of paper that says the metal's inside. Then you have the rubber piece with the longer nubs on the outside, you know, the shorter ones on the inside, and then the sleeves. So then when I get back to, you know, routing the wires, you know, I have it right there in front of me. So now also, you know, also you want to put these pieces that are not readily available, you know, locked in so that they won't get lost. So here are the tail light assemblies. So you pull the sleeves back, and that exposes the wires. So to reuse this housing, I will unscrew this light bulb. Okay. I will cut the wire here. That pops up. Put the base to the side. Take the spring. Put that with it. And then what I can do, I'll put this in the vise. And this wire is soldered in there, and can try just doing it this way, but by adding a little new solder in there, that gets that all flowing, and then you can pull that out, pull out the old wire. And then you have this piece that you can put back together. It's a small little light bulb base. You take this, put that back in the spring, back with the housing, and then to hold it all in place, put the light bulb back in there. And you know, if you have a case where you want to use all your original components and things are not easy to source, you know, you'll be, you put in a new wire, you solder it to the old contact, and it's as good as new almost. So this is the ignition warning light, and this boot, I'll just slide back. Okay, like so. And this is also soldered. This has a broken bulb in it. Okay, that's another, the same connection. Now what I can do, let's see if I push that up. What is this? This is a little, I don't know, centering piece. I'll do that. Use an extra hand. So add a little bit more solder to get the old solder to flow. Okay, it's heating up. And just pull that out like that. Now we just need to do the one on the body. Okay. There we go. we want to take this boot. Okay, this is all set. So put this back in there. Find the spring and the base. Here it is. Goes in there like so. Take a light bulb, this light bulb base to hold everything in place so I don't lose it. Missed a little area right here, but just draw that so I know the path to route the wires. Okay. And there was that. It goes like that. Okay. But I won't throw any of that away just in case you know, I need to look at it later on. So to reuse this housing, I will unscrew this light bulb. Okay. I will cut the wire here. That pops up. Put the base to the side. Take the spring. Put that with it. And then what I can do, I'll put this in the vise. And this wire is soldered in there, and can try just doing it this way, but by adding a little new solder in there, that gets that all flowing, and then you can pull that out, pull out the old wire. And then you have this piece that you can put back together. It's a small little light bulb base. You take this, put that back in the spring, back with the housing, and then to hold it all in place, put the light bulb back in there. And you know, if you have a case where you want to use all your original components and things are not easy to source, you know, you put in a new wire, you solder it to the old contact, and it's as good as new almost. Pull up all of these wires. All of this stuff is all traced out. I have another light bulb base to do. That I have traced out. Okay, missed a little area right here, but just draw that so I know the path to route the wires. Okay. And there was that. It goes like that. Okay. But I won't throw any of that away just in case you know, I need to look at it later on. If something's not making sense, or I want to verify something. So this is the ignition warning light, and this boot I'll just slide back. like so. And this is also soldered. This has a broken bulb in it. Okay, that's the same connection. Now what I can do, let's see if I push that up. What is this? This is a little, I don't know, centering piece. I'll do that. Use an extra hand. This. Okay. So add a little bit more solder to get the old solder to flow. Okay, it's heating up. And just pull that out like that. Now we just need to do the one on the body. Okay. There we go. What do we want to take? We want to take this boot. Okay. This is all set. So put this back in there. Find the spring and the base. Here it is. Goes in there like so. Take a light bulb, this light bulb base, to hold everything in place so I don't lose it. And I'm ready to put this aside, and I'm going to start laying new wire. Now that I pulled up the old original harness, I now have this nail pattern, and I put in screws to hold the different light sockets in place. These are dash lights over here. You got your turn signal light that was here, and the ignition warning light, and here's the light switch that went right here. The overdrive switch, I desoldered the wires from the switches so I could just bring the new wires to the switches and solder them in. And now I'm going to start routing the wire around the nail pattern. So I'm going to start routing the wires, and I'm just going to start with the red wire that's for the parking lights for no particular reason. Leaving plenty extra. I'm going to route it around the pattern. Now here's the plate illumination. So I'm connecting the parking lights to the plate illumination and then to the parking lights on the right or left side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loop so that I'll tie these. I will end up cutting these and putting them to the contact together, and then so I can have that goes, you know, from the parking light to the tail light, or to the license plate illumination, over to the other tail light, and route that around there, through there, and you know, it's going to go to this other parking light. And then what I'll do is you're going to have two wires that come back as well. So I will, you know, fold that in half so I can tie those together, and then come back that way, and then go out to the main harness, or start heading over towards the main harness. I'm going to make another loop here because this is where it's going to connect the main harness, part of the harness that's going to the dash. I'm going to be using a double barrel connector, which is for bringing 4 wires together. So I'll have you know, the wire from the rear harness coming in, and you know, cut this and put a bullet contact on each, and then I'll have one wire that goes out here that goes to the light switch, and you know, then I'll have the other wire that goes off towards the front of the harness. So next I'm going to route the turn signal lights. So I'll leave a little extra, go through there. The green white goes to the right side of the car, which is for the right hand turn signal. Routed the wires to the high beam dip switch, and just to kind of pull them tight, I wrap them around that screw, and they route in this manner up to the main trunk of the harness, and then, you know, just extra length so I could attach it to the fuse box later. And just adding in the starter solenoid wire, and that is the white with a red stripe, and this is actually a 16 gauge wire, and that comes from the starter relay. And you know, just wiring these now into the main trunk of the harness that goes to the back of the dash, where the you know, then the fuse box will be in one area, and then, you know, just coil these up. So now I'm going to route the wires to the high beam and low beams on your headlights. There's a blue, dark blue with a white stripe, and a dark blue with a red stripe, and the red on this is a little difficult to tell. So first you route the wires to the right side for the right headlights, and then, you know, these would come up. Actually, I'll run it through here. This actually should be over here. Run that through there. So there's going to be a joint where, you know, you connect the left headlights to the right headlights. So what I do is make a little loop, which I will cut later, and put the either put two of these conductors into one bullet, or I could use like a double sleeve and put a bullet on each, but I'll probably just put the two wires into one bullet because they fit. So then I just continue routing these back. And route it around this pattern that I have here. I'm gonna now route the wire to the horns. You have the purple wire with the yellow stripe. And I'll run it through. That's gonna go up to the to behind the dashboard. So I'll route that in the main trunk of the harness. This is going to be the output of the horn relay. That goes over to the horns. Put that in there. The wires don't always cooperate. Got that. Put that through there. Okay, so this is gonna go over to the first horn. Gonna come out through there. What we're gonna end up doing, pull that a little bit more, is we're gonna cut this wire, put two into one of the contacts so that we can go back over to the second horn. If this is long enough. That will be perfect. Okay, pull that out a little bit more. That should be good. So go up through here, and that will go off to the fuse box, to the horn relay. So then you have the purple wire with a black stripe, which is an 18 gauge wire, and that goes from the horn switch, which is ground actuated, over to the fuse box and the horn relay. So now I want to check the polarity of the horn just to make sure I have everything connected right. So the one that would be the ground would be the contact that has continuity to the chassis. In this case, the horn does not have continuity to the chassis. A horn is basically like a speaker, and but in this case, it is not polarity sensitive. So, just checking the continuity there. There is continuity, so that we know the horn is good. And what I have here is a power supply, 12 volt power supply, and if I touch the terminals, I get the horn to work in that way. And switch them, horn works that way too. So now I know I have a good horn, and I'll just be consistent with what I put into the left and right contacts, and I know that my horn will work. The horn relay in the fuse box is ground actuated, so now I want to verify the horn switch and that I am going to get continuity to ground when the horn button is pushed. So here I have this brown wire with a black stripe, and I wasn't sure that this was the horn switch wire, but when I touch this and push the horn button, I get continuity to ground, so I know that that's my horn button. So and I am getting continuity to ground. Now these are the turn signal wires. Now there's a green with a brown stripe, and there's a green with a red stripe, and a green with a white stripe. Now I know that the green with the brown stripe is the power coming into the turn signal switch, and when you turn the switch to either your left or right, you'll have continuity from your signal feed to either your left or right. So if I take that, now I don't have it, but now if I go from to the other side, I will have continuity when I turn it to the left. So that verifies the horn and turn signal switch. And again, it's using the continuity tester. So now I'm going to run the turn signal wire, and that's a light green with a brown stripe, and it's an 18 gauge line. It's a little bit difficult in this lighting to see the brown, but it is brown. So in most cars, the turn signal connections will be right underneath the steering column, but in this car, in the Healey, it's right by, the connection is right by the steering box. So I will route this through the harness and make its way over to the steering box, and this will be connected to the flasher that's in the fuse box, and when you hit the turn signal switch, the signals will flash. That will come out right here, which is, I must have measured it because it's comes out exactly how I need it. I have a lot more room over there. So now I'm going to do the ignition switch circuit, and in the Healey there's just a 2-position switch, which when the key is on, it just puts power to the coil or ignition circuit, and to start it, there's a push button start, and there's no accessory position. So if there was an accessory position, I would use this tan wire with a yellow stripe, and I'd put that to the ignition accessory position of the ignition switch, and run that over to I believe pin number 16 in the fuse box to energize the accessory relay. Since I don't have an accessory position in this car, I will just jumper from the ignition switch to the accessory circuit in order to energize that relay. Now I'm going to run my starter wire, and the starter wire is a white with a red stripe. Now there's 2 white with red stripes for the starter circuit. Now there's a 18 gauge and a 16 gauge. The 16 gauge is for the wire from the starter relay to the starter, and the 18 gauge is the one from your ignition switch or starter button to the fuse box. So now I'm going to do the dash lights, and the wire to the dash lights is the red with the white stripe, and I took these white light bulb assemblies apart, so and these connections are soldered, so I'll stick the wire through the light bulb base, and I'll stick the wire through the spring, and then here is the base of the bulb. So what I'll do is I'll use the jack or the vise, hold that like this, so this is I'm using 6040 leaded solder. Flows a little bit better than some of the RoHS compliant solders, but anyway, just touch the wire and the base, get the solder flowing. Fill it in, and that's all set. Pull that back in. Okay, so now I got a new wire to that. That goes there like so. And there's this. I'm going to strip that right about there. Put the bulb, you get ground wire and the power wire. So now I'm doing the ignition warning light, and you're going to have your ignition wire that's coming from the fuse box on your gauge circuit. That's going to be the power in to the ignition light socket, and that's going to go to the center of the bulb base. Then the brown wire with a yellow stripe that's coming from your alternator is going to go to the ground of the light socket.